quote-unquote good old days of the Attitude Era, WWE didn't have quite as impressive a European presence. Whereas nowadays we have NXT UK, a bevy of European tours, and talents such as Aleister Black, Becky Lynch, Cesaro, and Finn Balor, back in the late 90s and early 2000s, WWE rarely visited these shores for any prolonged period of time. The company were doing so well in the United States that there was no real need to depart for the often exhausting excursions. WWE did, however, create a special European Championship which was ostensibly for the benefit of their overseas fans who were just as hooked on the product as their American counterparts. The inaugural champion was decided, aptly enough, in Berlin, Germany in the main event of the March 10th, 1997 edition of Raw. In that match, the British Bulldog defeated Owen Hart in a genuine classic, giving the title instant credibility. Over the next 5 or so years, the title would see more ups and downs than WWE's stock price. The European Championship was at various times held by legends and Hall of Famers, being defended at WrestleManias and placed in the center of important storylines. It was also held by some performers best forgotten, with more than a couple using the belt as little more than a prop or as a transitional storyline element. Overall, the European Championship left a complicated legacy during its brief existence in the wrestling world. With that said, determining the merits of each individual champion can be a tricky business. So who better to tackle it than a cheeky Brit with a network subscription and too much time on his hands? I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic.com, and it's time to sort through the good, the bad, and the Midian. This is every WWE European Champion ranked from worst to best. Join us! But hey, before we start our countdown, I feel it's best to address what I will refer to as the RVD situation. No, this has nothing to do with being pulled over by highway police and having your push cancelled, but rather the end of the European Championship's lineage. In the summer of 2002, RVD was on a belt unifying spree, flying high, literally and figuratively, as IC champion, winning a series of unification matches, and putting an end to the hardcore and European belts. As such, RVD could be viewed as the last WWE European champion in the eyes of some. However, since WWE don't officially recognize it as a proper reign, and he didn't once defend the bloody thing, this list will not recognize it either. And if you don't like that, I'll see you in the comments section. On with the countdown. Number 26, Midian. We start directly at the bottom of the barrel with Midian, a man most famous for covering people in pig slop and a brief spell where he would attempt to wrestle naked. I implore anyone curious about the naked Midian gimmick to please, for the love of God, no, do not look for it. Before he discovered his passion for exposing himself on global television, and after his tenure as hog farmer Phineas I. Godwin, P.I.G., pig, get it? The real-life Dennis Knight landed himself a spot in the Undertaker's satanic Ministry of Darkness group. When he wasn't kidnapping, sacrificing, or otherwise doing things that would normally lead to a heavy prison sentence, Midian could be seen tagging with Viscera and the Acolytes, and scrapping with the likes of the Brood. The plodding soothsayer won the European Championship when, oh wait, hold on a second, no, he didn't. Midian was actually awarded the title from corporate ministry brethren Shane McMahon on the June 21st, 1999 episode of Raw. Midian had found the strap in Shane-O's travel bag. The title itself had been deactivated by the boss's son, who wished to retire it while undefeated. More on that later. Midian defended the title once on an episode of Sunday Night Heat before losing it at Fully Loaded on July 25th, 34 days after someone who I'm assuming is Vince Russo thought, how can we make these championship belts mean any less? Subsequent attempts by Midian to recapture the title were, thankfully, unsuccessful. Number 25, Jeff Jarrett. JEFF-JARRETT is a rightful WWE Hall of Famer and had some great championship runs with both the IC and tag team titles in its heyday. His short run with the European gold, however, was a mere footnote due to the way in which he lost the belt, if you can call it that. Things started positively enough, with the Chosen One dethroning DLo Brown in the opener of SummerSlam 99, a match where DLo's Intercontinental title was also on the line. Mind you, Double J didn't accomplish that feat on his own. A balsa-wood guitar-wielding Mark Henry helped out, turning on former friend DLo. Why? Because DLo, an all-round good guy and hell of a friend, was trying to help the world's strongest man shed a few pounds, and Henry felt as though he was being pushed too hard. If you think this storyline was a punishment/message from management to one of their more expensive signings, then you're probably right. Anyway, the next night on Raw, Jarrett simply gave the title to Henry as a thank you for helping him capture the IC title, a belt that was seen as more of a stepping stone to main event stardom. Russo-rific, baby! Number 24, Chris Jericho. You'll likely see Chris Jericho's name here on this list and think, what the hell happened there? The answer, in short, is not much. Like Jeff Jarrett, the Ayatollah of Rock and Roller's title reign started well, with a victory over Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit at WrestleMania 2000, a 2-fall match in which Angle's IC title was also on the line. The reign, however, was over before it really began, with Jericho dropping the strap to Eddie Guerrero the following night on Raw. Similar to the Jarrett situation, Guerrero had a helping hand from someone who decided it was time to finally become a bastard. The culprit this time was China, the 9th wonder of the world, aligning herself with Latino heat and starting a run that would prove very successful for both. Much more so than Y2J's 24-hour dalliance with the European title. Number 23, Crash Holly. The often overlooked Crash Holly is most famous for his run with another title, the infamous Hardcore Championship. It was with that belt that the Elroy Jetson lookalike was able to flourish, creating many a memorable moment thanks to the original 24/7 rule, where he would defend the title everywhere from airports to Funtime USA, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Once that piece of business had run its course, Crash began teaming with cousins Bob and Molly, the meanest man and sweetest woman in the world, and managed to have brief runs with the light heavyweight and European titles. The Houdini of Hardcore's European triumph came at one of WWE's UK exclusive pay-per-views, Rebellion 2000. Crash scored a surprising win over the UK's own William Regal, a shocking title change considering barely anything of note happened on those UK pay-per-views, which at times seemed to be nothing more than glorified house shows. Less surprising was the fact that Regal regained the gold 2 days later on Raw when the crew had landed back in the US. Number 22, Bradshaw. Another entry that'll make you sit up and say, oh yeah, I forgot that was a thing that happened once, is number 22, Bradshaw. Prior to reinventing himself as a top-level heel with JBL, Bradshaw was a career mid-carder, working mostly as a babyface and usually teaming with real-life best friend and fellow locker room enforcer Ron Simmons as the APA. The Big Texan took a break from backstage hazing and beating up rookies to capture the European title from the Hurricane on the October 22nd, 2001 edition of Raw. The match itself was nothing remarkable, just typical 3-minute fodder. Bradshaw's lone title defense took place the night after winning it, a victory over Canyon, who better, at a Sunday night heat taping. Ending with all the impact of a David Flair punch, JBL's reign came to an end 8 days later at a SmackDown taping where he lost the belt to Christian. Not on the actual show, however, oh no. The European title and JBL's reign was such an afterthought that the switch happened during a non-televised dark match. Number 21, Mark Henry. You'd be forgiven for not remembering the Hall of Famer's 1-month dance with the European title. After all, this is a man who brought us the incredible Hall of Pain run, that salmon-colored jacket, and had an on-screen relationship with horny septuagenarian Mae Young. As mentioned earlier, Henry was simply given the European title from Jeff Jarrett the night after SummerSlam 99. As is the case with many title runs during the winter of Russo's tenure, it was unmemorable and used mainly as a way to advance a storyline, in this case the feud between Henry and DLo Brown. Brown captured the title back at Unforgiven, ending Henry's 31 days as champ. Number 20, Spike Dudley. Spike Dudley may well go down in history as one of WWE's great overachievers, as he managed to accomplish a hell of a lot during his relatively short time with the company. While obviously hanging in the shadow of storyline siblings Bubba and Devon, Spike nonetheless was a regular fixture on WWE television, winning tag team, cruiserweight, and yes, European gold between 2001 and 2005. The run to the Dudley litter also had a cracking, albeit brief storyline with top star Stone Cold Steve Austin, and took some of the meanest looking bumps this side of a Mick Foley match. Spike's European Championship reign wasn't exactly a career-defining moment, but he did manage to sneak in a couple of entertaining televised title defenses against William Regal. The way in which he captured the gold definitely stood out, as he intercepted Regal's brass knucks before the bell, delivering his own power of the punch and getting the win in 3 whole seconds. The pop was sizable, and the win itself really helped add to Spike's underdog character. Number 19 is Test. Test. This is an entry about Test. Again, not a tremendously memorable reign filled with great matches and moments. Are you beginning to sense a theme here? But at least Test enjoyed more than a cup of coffee with the title, eventually holding it for 69 days. Nice. In that time, he successfully defended it on television and at house shows, but never made much of an impact while recognized as the champion of the whole of Europe. Test was a talent that had most of the tools to be a serious player. Height, physique, a hell of a big boot, and a reputation as one of WWE's premier playboys. But he was never able to put it all together and become the star that many figured he would become in time. At least his title loss was memorable though, the towering Canadian doing the favors for Eddie Guerrero at the impeccable WrestleMania X7. Number 18, Jeff Hardy. Like many multiple champions on this list, the European title ranks way down on Jeff Hardy's resume. Jeff, like brother Matt, more on him later, could have been a great champion, but sadly his run was short and came during a point in his career where he was quite obviously feeling burned out and demotivated. 1 week after competing in a scintillating undisputed title ladder match with The Undertaker, the charismatic Enigma had another opportunity to win gold and did so by beating European champion William Regal. He successfully defended the belt against Regal in a rematch at the Vengeance pay-per-view, but lost it the next night to Rob Van Dam, who unified the title with the Intercontinental Championship. Despite not having the greatest reign, Jeff played his part in a breathtaking ladder match and one of the best European title matches in history. Number 17, Perry Saturn. Add Big Pez Perry Saturn to the list of European champions who should have, by rights, been bigger stars than they were. Not to say that Perry wasn't successful, but it's a little odd that he only managed to capture this and the Hardcore title, a belt that was held by Terry Runnels, one of Godfather's hoes, and Shawn Stasiak. It's even more strange when you consider the success Perry had achieved in ECW and WCW. It was from another former WCW standout that Perry managed to capture the gold, besting Eddie Guerrero at Fully Loaded 2000 in a decent match. While a title win on a pay-per-view over a wrestler the caliber of Guerrero may have signaled that the company had big plans for Saturn, it was not to be. He lost the title to Al Snow a little over a month later and slowly drifted further and further down the card. His European title reign would prove to be a high point in Perry's career. Outside of that time, he was romantically involved with an actual mop. Number 16, Shane McMahon. Contrary to popular belief, Shane McMahon was not a great wrestler or a great champion when he captured the European title. He won it in February 1999, winning it from X-Pac in a friggin' tag team match because Vince Russo. While not your typical defend the title on TV, pay-per-view and house shows champion, Shane, to be fair to him, more than held his own in 2 very entertaining matches against Mr. Waltman at WrestleMania 15 and No Mercy UK edition. This is especially impressive given that Shane had hardly any formal training and had competed in no other real matches to speak of. Now, could it be that those title defenses look better in comparison to, for example, the truly disastrous Hell in a Cell match between The Undertaker and Big Boss Man? It could be, but those matches stand out and still stand up, and Shane did retire as an undefeated champion. As a general rule, putting the belt on a McMahon usually means that it will be at least memorable, and Shane's short run as European champion is no exception. Number 15, DDP. It's fair to say that the WWE career of Diamond Dallas Page didn't go quite as he, nor any other wrestling fan that had been paying attention since around 1995, thought it would go. Brought in as the stalker of Undertaker's now ex-wife Sarah, the former WCW World Heavyweight Champion was beaten and emasculated worse than Mike Kanellis on Valentine's Day. Battered from the get-go, Page was viewed by WWE fans as a joke, and any hope of him repeating his previous WCW success was gone. After that threat was nullified, Page adopted a motivational speaker gimmick based on his very real passion for positivity and habit of dishing out life advice to the boys backstage. The character was so over the top and cheesy that it worked, resulting in many hilarious backstage segments and interviews. Page even began to regain some of the momentum that he'd lost during the Great Cucking of 2001, aka The Invasion. The change in outlook led to the capturing of the European title as Page beat his mentee Christian in January of 2002. After successfully defending the belt on TV and at house shows, Page got his WrestleMania moment that didn't involve driving the Honky Tonk Man to the ring, another successful defense against Captain Charisma. DDP lost the title to William Regal soon after, his WWE career coming to an end not long after that, a serious neck injury putting him out of the ring for several years. Number 14, Christian. Breaking up is hard to do, but sometimes it's necessary, especially if you're a tag team specialist that has single star potential. While they enjoyed a massively successful run as Edge and Christian, it was clear in the summer of 2001 that both members of the team could do with a change of scenery, and that meant going it alone. WWE obviously saw Edge, the taller, more muscular half, as future WWE champion material, and quickly had him win King of the Ring and then the Intercontinental title. Christian, on the other hand, captured the European crown in an attempt to distinguish himself from his storyline brother. And as was usually the case with the man who must surely be Hall of Fame bound, he made the most of it by having great matches, cutting entertaining promos, getting his rivalry with DDP over. He held the title for a positively marathon 90 days before dropping it to Yoga Dad. Number 13, Val Venis. Val Venis has a very large legacy as WWE Superstar. Back in the Attitude Era, before his addiction to cannabis and ill-fated attempts to stay relevant by attacking trans people, Val Venis was actually a pretty damn good professional wrestler and a standout character. One of the more outlandish characters in an outlandish era, the adult entertainment star was a significant part of one of the most successful periods ever. A former IC champion, Venis took European gold from the British Bulldog at Armageddon 99 in a triple threat match also involving DLo Brown. Holding the title for 59 days, the Big Valboski racked up several defenses on television before losing it in quick fashion to Kurt Angle, and there's certainly no shame in that. Number 12, the Hurricane. The ill-fated invasion storyline had many failures and only a few real successes. Highlights included the rise of Rob Van Dam, Steve Austin, Kurt Angle and Vince McMahon wearing cowboy hats and hugging each other, and the introduction of the Hurricane. Shane Helms was just another of the bland gang of also-rans that WWE brought in for the invasion, as they were unable to afford top stars like Goldberg, Kevin Nash, and Hulk Hogan. That's because those boys had big, fat, guaranteed contracts, and a pauper like Vince McMahon didn't have the checkbook to make it happen. Wink, wink. Rebranding himself as comical superhero the Hurricane, Helms became a much bigger star and got over strong with the fans. He also clearly got over with management, as he was given a European title to go along with his cape. Hurricane beat his buddy Matt Hardy on the August 27th, 2001 Raw with a little help from Ivory and a lead pipe. He'd go on to defend the title against Spike Dudley, Kane, and Big Show before losing it to Bradshaw. Number 11, Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels is one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time. Fact. Putting prejudice to one side, there's no doubt that the Heartbreak Kid could get the job done between the ropes, an unmatched performer during his prime, and worthy of any title bestowed upon him. However, as good as Michaels was from bell to bell, he could be quite the arrogant prick when outside the ring. Accusations of sabotage and politicking follow him and fellow Clique members to this day. Shawn, for his part, did not like losing, and would go out of his way to not drop titles to other members of the roster, whether that meant exaggerating an injury or simply losing his smile. Oh. The story of how HBK captured the European title is another that is mired in controversy, with different stories of what happened and what was supposed to happen circulating. Long story short, the title changed hands at One Night Only, a pay-per-view that took place in Birmingham, England, not too far from Davey Boy's hometown. Everything was set up for the local hero to vanquish the cocky member of DX, and Bulldog himself had given interviews dedicating his inevitable win to his cancer-stricken sister, Tracy. Then somebody, or a group of people, had a word and decided that if they really wanted to get some heat and build to an even bigger rematch down the line, shouldn't Shawn actually win the title in nefarious fashion? So that's what happened, as the fans pelted the ring with bottles and other garbage, and the Hart clan looked on grief-stricken. Shawn and Davey never had their rematch, the Montreal Screwjob sending Smith out of the company along with Brett. After a few defenses on television, Shawn lost the title in a pretend comedy match with partner in crime, Triple H. Which brings us to number 10, Triple H. The cerebral assassin is no stranger to championship gold, having racked up an impressive 14 world title reigns, 5 IC reigns, and 3 tag team reigns. Throw in the Royal Rumble, King of the Ring, and a couple of Slammies, and you have an illustrious career befitting one of the greatest to ever lace a pair of boots. Before solidifying himself as world title material though, Triple H had to climb the ranks like everyone else, putting in a shift and showing he could elevate himself, the title, and his opponents when entrusted with the responsibility. The game got his chance in the fall of '97 when he captured the European title in the aforementioned non-match with DX stablemate Shawn Michaels. Trips initially lost the title without really losing it himself, with Owen Hart beating the artist formerly known as Goldust, don't ask, who was dressed as Triple H, massive fake schnoz and all. It wouldn't be too long until the King of Kings regained the title from Owen, going on to hold it for a not inconsiderable 120 days before dropping it and moving swiftly on to bigger and better things. For his program with Owen and the odd decent defense here and there, Triple H cracks the top 10. Well done, Daddy Full Sail. Number 9, Al Snow. Going from Triple H to Al Snow is what some would call a hard left turn, but the fact Al ranks higher than Hunter is not as alien as you may think. While Snow, another Attitude Era mainstay who got over thanks to a novel gimmick and his versatility, didn't hold the European Championship for long, he did what many from the time did a lot better than some today. He made whatever TV time he did have count. After winning the title, Snow proceeded to come out each week as a new amalgamation of a European stereotype. There was was the David Hasselhoff-loving, lederhosen-wearing, sausage-eating German. There was a beret-wearing, poodle-walking, baguette-eating Frenchman. There was the, leather jacket and glasses-wearing Greek. Anyway, while the Continental cosplay didn't exactly lead to much upward mobility, it's a fondly remembered gimmick. And it also contributed to one of the more standout European title reigns of the time. Number 8, Owen Hart. The King of Hearts, who was definitely not a nugget, made a damn fine European champion as he combined his personality and charisma with a natural wrestling ability and inherent credibility. It almost never happened, as like extended family member Davey Boy Smith, Owen was close to calling it quits in the wake of the Montreal Screwjob. With brother Bret moving on to the land where the big boys played, Owen was thinking about joining him, provided that he could get out of his contract. Unfortunately for Owen, he couldn't, with Vince and company deciding he was too valuable an asset to let go to the competition. Now that he was staying though, WWE knew they had to do something with the Rocket and began hatching plans to make him a champion. When he became European champion, Owen immediately enhanced the perception of the title. With Owen as champ, good matches were guaranteed, and the person that took it from him would be elevated in the eyes of the fans too. While many of Owen's title defenses took place on smaller shows like Shotgun Saturday Night against such luminaries as Jesus Castillo, yeah, me neither, it was really his feud with the future Mr. Stephanie McMahon that made him such a great champion in the all too brief time that he held it. Number 7, Kurt Angle. The meteoric rise of Kurt Angle was something to behold at the dawn of the new millennium. The Olympic gold medalist took to professional wrestling like a duck to water, displaying incredible athleticism, charisma, and natural instincts and timing. Given his pedigree and how quick fans took to hating the man who preached the three eyes, it was no wonder that WWE went about further decorating the man who would become one of the best to lace a pair of boots. In the midst of an impressive undefeated streak, Angle felled Val Venis for the European title on the February 10th, 2000 episode of SmackDown. It was not until 17 days later at the No Way Out pay-per-view that Angle's European reign would blossom, with the Hall of Famer beating Chris Jericho for the IC strap and becoming the Eurocontinental champion. Angle was a hoot as the clean-cut but cocky double champion and defended both titles in the same match on house shows. When he tried the same at WrestleMania 2000, he found himself titleless after Jericho and Chris Benoit pinned each other in successive falls where Angle wasn't even involved in the decision. All of which gave Angle more to complain about as he continued to get under the skin of the WWE fans en route to an unparalleled career on top. Number 6, X-Pac. Fresh off a FedEx firing from Eric Bischoff and WCW, Sean Waltman resurfaced in WWE the night after WrestleMania 14, quickly aligning himself with Triple H and the New Age Outlaws to form the latest incarnation of those cheeky poop joke provocateurs, D-Generation X. After engaging in an entertaining feud with Jeff Jarrett, the newly named X-Pac would set his sights on DLo Brown and his European gold, capturing the title on the September 15th, 1998 Raw. His first reign would be short-lived, however, as Brown regained the belts 2 weeks later on Monday night. Proving that during this era, the shorter the title reign, the better, bro, the former 1-2-3 Kid won the belt once again at In Your House Judgment Day in a lovely match. One of the good things about X-Pac's reign as European champion is that you were almost always guaranteed a good and entertaining match, whether he was in there with an Ultimate Fighter, a prison guard, or an actual vampire. X-Pac was, all in all, a good champion who could have done more with the belt had he been given the time and not had to drop it to Vince's third favorite child. Number 5, Eddie Guerrero. Eddie Guerrero had an auspicious start in WWE. After jumping from the sinking ship that was WCW, Guerrero, along with Chris Benoit, Dean Malenko, and Perry Saturn, caused a stir by attacking WWE wrestlers and being treated as a genuine threat from the off. Then, the next time they appeared on television, the quartet lost all of their matches, and worse, poor Eddie dislocated his elbow while performing a routine frog splash. Well, routine for him. It was a disheartening situation, the pain and worry etched over his face. But you know what they say, you can't keep a good Guerrero down, and Eddie rallied, coming into his own as a personality while temporarily on the sidelines. When he returned to the ring, he quickly captured the European Championship from Chris Jericho and started an on-screen relationship with Chyna, the two going together like Bray Wyatt and bad booking. Eddie was a fighting champion, defending the belt in good matches against eclectic opponents such as Rikishi, S.A. Rios, and his fellow Radicals members. His 100-plus day reign as European champion is certainly a fondly remembered part of his early WWE days. Number 4, Matt Hardy. The sensei of Mattitude has proven time and time again that he can make anything mean something, whether it's a match, angle, or title, as long as he's given the time and freedom to get it over. In his early days as a WWE superstar, Matt had to to work to distinguish himself from his brother Jeff, if not the rest of his co-workers. As with Edge and Christian, management clearly always saw the ultra-unique Jeff as the potential single star, whereas question marks remained over the comparatively conservative Matt. Proving himself as a worthy singles champion, Matt had a great run with the European title in the spring and summer of 01, taking it from Eddie Guerrero, who is enjoying a second, briefer reign with the gold. A true fighting champion, Marvelous Matt's title defenses were ever present, and although he never had a classic match while holding it, he had countless good ones. As well as this, the fact that he actually defended and cared about the title meant that the fans ended up doing so too. It's not that difficult, is it, WWE? When the Hurricane finally took it from him after 122 days, it was seen as a bigger deal than it might have been were it not for the efforts of the Elder Hardy. Number 3, DLo Brown. On to number 3, and you're looking at the real deal now. You're looking at a man who is going to kick your sorry ass down the street. I'm sure you used to think that you owned the streets, but you should probably pack your bags because your ass is dead meat. That's right, it's DLo Brown. Unlike many of the entries on this list, DLo is probably the one who is most likely to be remembered because of his European Championship glory, not in spite of it. Over a joint record 4 reigns, DLo, who really is underrated by just about everybody not named Jim Ross, defended the title in a number of great matches. In fact, many were show stealers in a time not exactly remembered for an abundance of great in-ring action. Highlights included the previously mentioned series of bouts with XPac and a great SummerSlam 98 opener with Val Venis. Aside from the matches, what made DLo stand out was the head wobble, chest protector gimmick, and the fact that he was the first ever Eurocontinental champion. That's right, while that wily Olympian Kurt Angle may have made a bigger deal about it, he was pipped to the accomplishment by Brown. If you want to see the European champion when it meant something, watch DLo Brown when he held the belt, or I will kick your sorry ass out on the street. Number 2, William Regal. As a British wrestling fan of a certain era, obviously I bloody love William Regal. Whether he was a real man's man, getting his tea pissed in, or kissing a billionaire's bare backside, he was always good value and made you want to watch whatever he was involved in. The fact that Regal returned to the company to have the run that he did is something of a minor miracle, since substance abuse issues had hampered his initial run in '98 and subsequently led to a pink slip from WCW. And hey, if WCW decided your personal demons were too bad to do business with you, you knew you had a bit of a problem. But Regal also knew that he needed to get help, and to help himself. So he quickly went back to work, cleaning up and proving his worth in WWE's developmental leagues. After a bit of time to get rid of the ring rust, Regal reappeared on television as the snobbish goodwill ambassador. Now that WWE had a true European star eager to prove themselves in their ranks, it only made sense that he would go after the title most closely aligned with his homeland. After defeating Al Snow for the belt, Regal quickly went about defending against all comers and briefly found himself in the main event mix competing with Steve Austin, The Rock, and Kurt Angle. Being in there with the best in the biz was a good omen for both Regal and for the championship he held, whether he won the matches or not. Spoiler, of course he didn't win any of those matches. Regal would lose the belt to Crash Holly and Tess before being elevated to Intercontinental level, but he returned to the European title scene once again in 2002, having half-decent matches in the days of ruthless aggression. A fine champion and a fine man, and if you don't think so, I'll get my dad to knock you out. Number 1, the British Bulldog. So here we are, the best European champion of all time, saving the best for last. Well, actually, we're saving the first for last because the first is the best, and that is the inaugural title holder, the British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith. A true superhero to children in the UK, Smith was already well established by the time he defeated Owen Hart in that tournament final in Germany. Davey Boy had previously become a legend when he beat Bret Hart for IC Gold on these shores in the stupendously good main event of SummerSlam 92. In the time between those two triumphs, Bulldog had left the company for a stint in Atlanta, returned, bounced up and down the card, formed a successful tag team with Owen, and headlined several European tours. It seems obvious that the European title was dreamed up with Davey Boy in mind, and for good reason. He was over, he was marketable, and he could work. Plus, you know what? The belt just looked really cool around his waist. It could be argued that Davey Boy isn't the best European champion ever because the belt was rarely defended on television and was mainly used as a house show attraction. But you would be arguing with yourself, or in the comments section, because this is my list and my rules, and I have the microphone. Though his reign ended in less than ideal circumstances, also known as Shawn Michaels screwing with creative, Bulldog would get a second bite at the European title cherry when he returned to the company in 1999. A not exactly stellar reign of 44 days was clearly hampered by Smith's Smith's injuries. He'd previously knackered his back when WCW brass decided it would be a good idea to have a painful trapdoor in the middle of the ring for the Ultimate Warrior's surprise entrance, because of course they did. Still, there was something just right about seeing that man with the belt. The British Bulldog gets the nod as the #1 WWE European Champion due to his classic matches with Owen and Michaels, the length of his reign, and more than anything, what he meant to European fans at that time. Cheerio!